I'm so sorry. It appears I'm a bit of a spanner. Yeah. Hi. You hear me okay this time? You know what really helped? Not only, well, the microphone was on and the sound was tested. Hello, Jeannie. Hello, Decrittle. I'm so embarrassed. I was focused and focused. I wanted to have everything set up right and everything set up on time. You know what this spanner did? I forgot to enter the stage, so of course you couldn't hear me. I'm so embarrassed. I don't know, drop to drink for Christmas. I will be on New Year's, so I'm definitely intending it. Or on Sunday. I have one them. Oh, it was. I was chatting away and it was all quiet and nobody was there. And I was like, well, okay, I'll just huddle on and I'll start talking about Paddington. And I was having problems saying the story. Because the thing is, the book I was reading is landscape and it doesn't suit to be in portrait. I think Karma's giving me a second chance on this one. So embarrassed. Oh, I better make sure that I let Rose know what's going on. Okay. I'll rebalance myself a little bit. How are you doing? Are you doing all right? Is everything okay? Oh my goodness. Thank you for letting me know I was making a bit of a twit out of my mouth. Remove the W. Oh my goodness, I'm so embarrassed. That was funny. Right. Let me know how you're doing, how things are going. And let's start again. Oh, that's good. I'm glad you had a nice, peaceful day. What about you, Jeannie? How was your day? Was everything all right? I pretty much just potted around doing this, that, and the other. It was, I didn't see so well last night for some reason. I think it's because I was quite excited about today. And by heckers, it took me forever to find what I wanted to find. Hey, what is funny though? I hope you don't mind me doing this. I don't know if you can hear the music, but check this out. This is so fun. Ready? This has been in my head for like the last 3 hours. I love it. I can't even tell. Anyway, so yes, that's my new favourite little background tune just to treat you all with. I'm gonna try and find my new thing on thingy and get myself all set up again. So I can hear what you're saying. And it messed up me flipping thing. There we go. We're all on the right one. Yes. Hello. All right. How's it going? Hello, petals. Right. Get myself reorganised. So today what we've actually got apple and elderflower sparkling water. A nice beaker with a bobber straw to help me out there, and a cup of tea and some water. Yes. And my big flask as well. Yeah. Well, I don't think it's quite Crazy Frog, but I don't know. I like it. I like the recorder. I like the biddy 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 biddy. It reminds me of Tweaky from Buck Rogers in the 21st Century. My goodness, I did that on tight. Oh, Tweaky was legendary. Everybody was into Buck Rogers, but no. For me, it was Tweaky. He was the legend. Now you're gonna get some background noise. So if you want to go for a pee, I apologise. I should have done this beforehand. Gluggity gluggity glug. Let's make sure that we keep hydrated, haven't we, my lovely things? Been for later on. Goodness gracious, Rose. Are you all right, my lovely? This is the thing. It's like you don't do it, but you end up kind of like you've got it hardwired into you to do, haven't you? Like the cleaning, the tidying, the fresh, and the spring cleaning for New Year's, and all this, that, and the other schmargles and stuff. You know, this chair is absolutely frustrating me today. Don't know why. Well, I do know why, but spend out £120 on a flipping chair. You think you've got yourself sorted for the new studio. And it's horrible. And I do not like it. It's very uncomfortable. But I shall be moving everything round this weekend because I'm going to put the big desk here, which is a big L-shaped desk. Absolutely lovely desk, but I'm going to put it in the main bedroom, and I'm going to bring my little desk from the main bedroom into here because I feel so claustrophobic when I'm recording. Like right now, I've got my sound box to my left, and that's like comes out from the table about 8 inches, just to make sure I can keep that microphone enclosed, sort of thing. And then on the right, I've got the desk, so I kind of like slot myself in to this little sort of like 12-inch width gap. And then I can like sneak myself forward. And then, of course, because my floor's not quite even, I'm going to put some new carpet tiles down in the new year, I hope. It's because the floor's not quite even and it's an old carpet. You keep rolling backwards, and you're like, wait. And then you realise when you're like, your sound's going a bit funny, like, you need to come back in again. And it's like, wait. And then come back in again. Anyway, right. So, quick check-in with you all, my lovely beans. How are you doing? How are things? Are you okay? So Rosie's cleaning from the Christmas day she didn't have. Dee Crittle's getting a bit mind warped from the crazy frog vibes from the music. I'm sorry about that, but you had a nice peaceful day. And Jeannie's here. The original, the OG, in fact. Jeannie, one of my absolute OGs. Yeah, so, well, you're amazing people. It's so nice that we're all coming together and that we're always here, and you know, we're all sharing in these stories. And we've got Paddington and the Christmas surprise first, because Paddington, obs. But I've got the big yin, as we talked about. I found a book of fairy tales for adults, which I think is fantastic. It's based more for the modern era, and I'm going to put my own spin on it. So hopefully it'll be a bit more successful, especially seeing as we all had such a fantastic night last night. We're all chatting away. It was absolutely wonderful because, yeah, I tend to whiffle on when it's just me, but when you're all kind of contributing, it's just, I love it. We really found a vibe yesterday. It was absolutely brilliant. So, my lovely beans, Paddington and the Christmas Surprise by our beloved Michael Bond. You ready for this? Sitting comfortably. Yes, I shall begin. One Christmas, Paddington announced he was taking the Brown family to Barkridge's store to see Santa Claus. It's festive value, he explained. Apart from meeting Mr. Claus, there's a sleigh ride through Winter Wonderland, and you get to visit his workshop at the North Pole. You might even see where he makes his marmalade. I doubt if Santa makes his own marmalade, said Mrs. Brown nervously, as Paddington led the way onto the escalator. It would make all the presents sticky, agreed Jonathan. Not to mention his beard, added Judy. Besides, he's much too busy. That's more than you can say for Barkridges, remarked Mr. Brown gloomily as he brought up the rear. There's hardly anybody here. Now, there were 2 signs at the top of the escalator, one pointing to Santa Claus and one pointing to Winter Wonderland. I think I may visit Santa Claus first, announced Paddington, in case the sleigh gets stuck in the snow. He got down on his paws and knees in order to get a better look and make sure it wasn't too deep. Just then, he looked up and saw a man staring down at him. Are you a boy or a girl? Asked the store manager. I'm neither, said Paddington. I'm a bear. You look more like a large, creepy crawly to me, said the man distastefully. Boo, hiss, we don't like him. Perhaps you'd better come back next year when you've made up your mind. Come back next year, repeated Paddington hotly. But I've brought my Christmas list. I thought it would save the postage. The Browns were too far away to hear what was being said, but from the look on Paddington's face, they guessed something must be wrong. Hurry up, called Mrs. Bird. We're all ready to go. Oh dear, Henry, said Mrs. Brown. I do hope this sleigh ride is a success. Paddington's been saving his bun money for ages, and he'll be most upset if it doesn't live up to his expectations. As Paddington clambered aboard and they set off, Mr. Brown held up a leaflet. Listen, everybody, he called. First of all, we go past Santa's winter garden. I think I prefer Mrs. Bird's window box, said Paddington. The Browns exchanged anxious glances. It didn't seem a very good start to the outing. How about this one, then? Continued Mr. Brown, as they turned a corner. It's the stable where Santa keeps his reindeer. Paddington didn't see anything. From where he was sitting, it looked more like a dog kennel, and the only reindeer he could see was a plastic one that had fallen over in the snow. Next, Mr. Brown pointed to a very tall tower with a flashing light at the top. That's the lighthouse at the North Pole, he said. It's there to make sure Santa arrives back home safe and sound after he's delivered all his presents. Paddington gave it a hard stare. Welcome back, Time Lord Boy. Paddington gave it a hard stare. I think there must be a wire loose, Mr. Brown, he exclaimed. The light keeps going on and off. Lighthouses are supposed to flash, broke in Jonathan. They all send out different signal so that people know exactly where they are. But Paddington was not listening. He was counting the number of buns it had taken to pay for the outing. Now, this might be more interesting. Mr. Brown tried to strike a cheerful note as they drew nearer to a big house with mechanical figures moving behind every window. Narrator's note, they frightened the bajillicas out of me, them things. Well, not so much the mechanical, like dummies and everything you get in fair rides, because I don't really do fair rides. You know the steam fairs? And they've got the big pipe organs. And then the pipe organs, they've got the ones which hit the xylophone and they like go ping, 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 and their head moves every time. Shudder. Don't like those at all. Now, this might be more interesting. Mr. Brown tried to strike a cheerful note as they drew nearer to a big house with mechanical figures moving behind every window. We're about to enter Santa's workshop. Look at the elves, called Judy. He turned round in order to explain elves to Paddington. As she did so, she gave a cry of alarm, for he was nowhere to be seen. Do something, Henry, cried Mrs. Brown, when she saw what had happened. Do something, repeated Mr. Brown. What am I to do from inside the middle of a workshop? Oh, we haven't reached the end of the tour, warned Mrs. Bird. Paddington will be most upset if he misses any of it. Mr. Brown tried to put a brave face on things, but when they reached the end of the ride and there was still no sign of Paddington, he looked as worried as any of them. He called to one of Santa's helpers. There's a bear fallen into our works, repeated the man. I'll send for the manager at once. Bear, exclaimed the manager. Did I hear someone say bear? If it's the one I met earlier, I'm not surprised he's missing. A troublemaker if ever I saw one. Blue duffel coat, old hat. I'd recognize him anywhere. Leave it to me, I'll find him. We're certainly not going until you have, warned Mrs. Bird. And what's more, if I know that bear, he'll be wanting his money back. No one has ever asked for their money back before, wailed the manager. Well, there's a first time for everything, said Mrs. Bird grimly. I love Mrs. Bird. As the manager disappeared through one door, Paddington came through another. I think I found the fault in the lighthouse, Mr. Brown, he called. Bears are good at mending things, but before he had a chance to finish, there was a loud bang from somewhere inside Santa's workshop, and all the lights went out. Where is he? Shouted the manager. Where is he? I'll give him a present he won't forget in a hurry. Mrs. Bird took a firm grip of her umbrella. Come along, everyone, she called. I think we've had enough wonders for one day. Paddington certainly hit the headlines, said Mr. Brown at breakfast the next morning. Listen to this. Strange goings on in London store. One thing's for certain, said Mrs. Brown. We shan't be allowed into Barclays again in a hurry. I don't know, broke in Jonathan. Listen to this one. Crowds flock to Santa's workshop. Search for mystery bear goes on. Everyone was so busy reading the newspapers that they didn't notice Mrs. Bird leave the room. She had an important telephone call to make. Barcridges, said the manager several days later, wishes you all a very Merry Christmas. Ever since this young bear first honoured us with a visit, we've had queues outside our store. It's quite like old times. He turned to Mrs. Bird. And thank you, dear lady, for telephoning us when you did. Perhaps I could do some more repair for you, said Paddington hopefully. I don't think that will be necessary, said the manager hastily. Besides, Santa is waiting to see you, after you've all had a free sleigh ride. It was a merry party of Browns who set off on their journey through Winter Wonderland. This time, everything worked perfectly. And when they came to the end of the ride, Santa Claus was waiting to greet them. Ho, 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 he boomed. And who do we have here? I'm a bear, Mr. Claus, said Paddington, and I come from the darkest Peru. Well, said Santa, reaching behind his chair. In that case, I think I know just what you would like. Paddington nearly fell over backwards with surprise as Santa Claus held up an enormous jar. There was a label on the side that said homemade, and it was tied at the top with a big red bow. It's my favourite, Mr. Claus, he cried. However did you guess? Mrs. Bird's face went pink as Santa gave her a knowing smile. One of the nicest things about Santa Claus, she said, is that he knows exactly what everybody wants for Christmas. That's what makes him so special. And he makes his own marmalade, said Paddington happily. I knew he would. That was Paddington's Christmas surprise. Oh, I love Paddington. Oh. I did not see Santa this year, nor did I whammed or slayed. Wait, no, that was good. Hey, do you know something? I've not heard any Santa songs. Not this year. I don't know why. I don't know. I think it's because I've just had my head down in my books. Right, let's have a look at the let's have a little look at the comment section. Oh, right. So we're all present and correct, which is absolutely lovely. And of course, anybody else is always a bonus. Right, Paddington the film and Paddington 2. It took me a long time to get to watch them because, as you all know, I am a massive fan of Paddington. I absolutely adore him. And I was put off from watching it for so very long, but when I did, oh my goodness gracious, so very well done. It's its own thing. It'll never be the books of Paddington, but it's got its own little bubble, and it fits just nicely in that little bubble. Definitely. Oh, are they? I've got a Paddington that travels to America and back, and he takes pictures out in the forest. It's quite awesome. But yes, Paddingtons are the best, especially the original. Do you remember the original cartoons, like the pencil drawn ones, almost like pen and ink? Like Michael Bonded actually did the illustrations, I think. But I loved the kind of illustration style where it was like the chord layers on top of each other. And it was almost like, they had a little kind of like lollipop stick stuck behind the card and were toddling it along. So, oh, did you get? Oh, that is so wonderful. Oh, that's so cute. That's absolutely lovely story to have your wife called like nickname of Paddington. Oh, what a lovely thing to do. Oh, that's so nice. That's really cute. Oh, I like it because that's yeah. No, and obviously the situation. It's kind of yeah. That's adorable. Cuddly and cute, but a very very industrious bear. Yes. She might like marmalade. Please excuse having a drinky drink. So then, today, um, as I said, I got some comedy with the big yin. I've got interesting stories for curious people, and I've also got grown-up fairy tales. You, yes, duffel coats and big hats. Oh, are you doing okay, Dee Crystal? By the way, it is a difficult time of year, isn't it? So it's good to see you here. It really is. We can all share this time and just have happy smiles about good memories. Yes. I hope it was okay that I read Paddington. I do absolutely adore him very, very much. So it's a nice little tribute to Mr. Paddington. I love him because he's awesome. Yo. So, Mr. Time Old Boy, how are you doing today? Have you had a good day? Is everything awesome? So good to see you here. Right, so what we're going to do, hopefully this is going to work a bit better, is I've got some stories. So we've got Snow White, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Jack and the Beanstalk, Hansel and Gretel, Red Riding Hood, the Three Billy Goats Gruff, the Ugly Duckling, Three Little Pigs, Cinderella, the Frog Prince, Pied Piper of Hamelin, and the Sleeping Beauty. But yes, smile because I was here. Don't be sad because I'm gone. I like that. Big love and big hugs. Just for yes. So yes, we have now. Hopefully, these stories for grown-ups will work out a bit better than they have done for the last couple of days. So bear with me, and if you want to interject at any point, please feel free to do so because I'm always happy for any comments. So, what would you fancy to start off with? Let's try between, okay, Snow White, Hansel and Gretel, Sleeping Beauty or Red Riding Hood. Ah, you see, this is the thing though, because they're not they're a reimagining of these stories. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna read through it, and then I'm gonna add my two pennyworth, my worth, as we say, and twist it and turn it around a little bit and make it a bit more quirky. So, but we don't have to do that one at all. So as I said, right, this is listen carefully because these are the ones we're going to select from. We've got Snow White, Red Riding Hood. We've said about the Pied Piper, Frog Prince, Sleeping Beauty, Three Little Pigs, Cinderella, the Ugly Duckling, Hansel and Gretel, Three Billy Goats Gruff, Jack and the Beanstalk, Goldilocks, and Snow White. The vampire. Indeed. Does anybody remember like the version of Three Little Pigs by Green Jelly? So much fun. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? For the plague, I believe. And he got overrun by it. Yeah, dark. But you know. Oh, Jeannie, you're a bean. I absolutely do. I've never seen you, but you know what I mean. I can just imagine you are absolutely gorgeous, love. Because you're so funny. And that will actually come through, I believe. Round bottoms. Something like that. We like this. Have we got any choices, or should I just wing it? Let's wing it. I don't know which one to choose. I'm a Libran. Well, I'm a Virgo, Libra, and Cusp, so I don't know which one to choose. But then again, I'm happy to go with what we do choose. So it's all good and gravy by me, definitely. I'm going to give it 3, 2. I'm going to just point at one. No, that's too high. Me, 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 me. Well, I didn't know that, Mr. Time Lord boy. I'm going to have to look into that one, I think. That's fascinating. I love the dark histories, especially the Victoriana dark history. I did want to do a whole series on the dark history of Victorian times, but the scandals, and I was going to do the whole sort of like acting out as if I was somebody who was reading the Penny Dreadfuls at the time. Fascinated by the Victoriana. Absolutely fascinated by it. I mean, Americana is one thing, but for me, Victoriana is one of those. The Regency era going into Victorian era is just one of the most incredible times. And yes, steampunkery is absolutely my jam. So yes, thank you, Simba. I'm going to look into that one definitely, definitely. But for now, I'm going to get into one of these stories. Now, we were pretty much let down with Cinderella yesterday, so I think I need to redeem myself, and hopefully this one will work out a bit better. Watching Cinderella put on the slipper, this is just a little side note. It struck Prince Charming how odd it was that she was the only woman in the kingdom who had a size 8 shoe. Right. So, let's try this one again. There was this lass called Ella, right? Her mother, unfortunately, met her demise. Her dad, happily, potted on, met another chick, got married really quickly. But the real problem is that he didn't think forward and he didn't arrange custody of Ella for if he actually met his dark end. So, unfortunately, when he did, she became the ward of his stepmother. Now, let's just say, the stepmother was not quite evil. It's a relative term in fairyland these days with all this blood and cruelty and stealing of firstborns and so forth. But even the Queen's BFFs couldn't deny that she was on the more evil side of the spectrum. Now, unable to stand the sight of Ella, she consigned her to the position of scullery maid and elevated her own 2 daughters to Ella's former station as crown princesses. At this time, a series of disastrous investment decisions led to a nationwide financial crash, and the royal family found itself suddenly cash poor. They had to go and sign on the dole with the rest of them. The new queen, nor fool, had already pivoted toward digital assets and brand management. She had also swapped a couple of mangy forests for a spanking new build office block in flashy Silicon Hillock, the only part of the realm impervious to recession, apparently. Now, in these offices, the Queen installed Ella's 2 stepsisters, Olga and Wilhelmina, as the company's CEO and CFO, respectively. Sad to say, these 2 treated the firm as their own private queendom, little madams, behaving imperiously towards their wretched employees and earning themselves the conjoined nickname of the Ugly Stepsisters. The ugliness referred to was spiritual and not a reference to their looks, with which this story is unconcerned and are not recorded here. Now, in a moment of inspiration, the Queen cut Princess Ella to work as an unpaid intern at the firm. We all know about this one. So basically what they do is they get you to do all this work, you hammer it away thinking you're going to get yourself an amazing job, but unfortunately that is not how things work out in the real world. They get a lot of free labour, you get the old heave-ho when they're done with you, and you're left out in the dust to starve cold. Thus, she could inconvenience and humiliate the girl and save herself some money into the bargain. Ella was expected to work 16-hour days cleaning the office, managing the stockroom, and signing for and unloading deliveries. Now, at the time the story was written, the company's biggest product by far was activated charcoal shots, which are for drinking. The shots were going great guns, selling in multiple chains, including Walmart and Saints Buried. The company had seen solid double-digit 4-quadrant growth year on year and were tipped by the clever money as a dominant force, if not a future category killer, in a serious expansion market. At least, so Ella overheard as she changed the photocopier toner. Traipsing up and down the service elevator all day as she did, Ella got terribly grimy and dusty. She started to hear others referring to her as Cinderella, which she actually quite liked. It was certainly accurate after all. Now, eventually, she began to think of herself as Cinderella, rebranding. You know how we do. We'll have this online presence where, we kind of like have a different caricature of ourselves, but it is always, no matter what, our true self at the core of it. Sweetie, said Olga one afternoon, peering around the door of the delivery bay. I'm sorry to ask, but could you put my out of office on for me? I've got to rush off for the long weekend. Sure thing, said Cinderella, appearing from behind a large crate. And do Willies too? Now, this was Wilhelmina's very unfortunate nickname. I literally can't even. Oh, you are a fun. What are you up to this weekend? Off somewhere nice? Olga glanced at her fawn, then sniffed the air, not wanting dust on her still drying acrylic nails. Uh, no, said Cinders. Big delivery this weekend, and I've got to be here. Not coming to the prince's ball. Olga was scandalised, but excited too, because Cinderella was by far the biggest competition for Prince Charming's hand in marriage, and here she was saying she would be able to attend his birthday ball. Practically every eligible lady on the continent had been invited. Then, Olga had a thought that made her heart canter at a happy rate. Was it possible that Cinderella had worked in the bowels of this building so long, people had forgotten she was royalty? Not unless the prince in question wants to come and help me shift 32 pallets to Bay F, Cinders replied. No wish for the wicked. Olga grimaced sympathetically. Still, she sought flailingly for a silver lining. Time and a half, I suppose. If I was paid, I guess it might be, said Cinderella. Olga could not think of a suitable response to this for fear of being reported to the union, and nor could she make out her stepsister's expression in the dark. The paws began to stretch, get a little bit orcs, and made them both a bit nervous. Best get back. Have a good one, said Olga. Then, feeling that the remark sounded thoughtless between stepsisters, she added sharply, someone really needs to start a doodle poll for that meeting about us going paperless. I'll do it, said Cinders. Easy peasy. And my printer's broken itself again. Oh, yawn. Could you fix? I can make that happen for you, Cinders replied. Totes adorbs, said Olga, retreating. Smiley face, crying face, kissing face, bye! Cinderella sat in the gloom of the delivery bay and breathed a sigh of relief. It was 5:30, and soon enough the office would be entirely empty. And then, she could really get to work. Hi, Mr. Bill. What are you doing here? Oh my goodness gracious! Yeah. Anyway, ahem. We'll try this again. I've completely got off on a tangent there. Right. Cinderella sat in the gloom of the delivery bay and breathed a sigh of relief. It was 5:30, and soon enough the office would be entirely empty, and then she could really get to work. First, though, she went up to her stepsister's offices on the top floor to put on their out of offices. She noticed that a too thick wad of paper had been petulantly jammed into Olga's printer, so she reset it and then back to the delivery bay. She turned on the lamp in her little kiosk and got down to some serious studying for the law degree which no one knew she was taking. At 7 she stretched, yawned, put the kettle on and made herself an instant miso soup. Sipping it and contemplating a weekend alone in the office, she shivered with the sheer joy of it. Around 10, too tired to trust herself cycling home in the dark, she went to sleep on her camp bed. And come morning, she was back at her desk. She took charge of the big delivery when it came around lunchtime, then headed out for a walk across the nearby canal to sit in the sun and eat her sandwiches that she got from M&S as a special treat before she got back to work. Several hours later, as the early evening sun finally disappeared from the kiosk window, Cinderella reached out to angle her special angle poise lamp, which she found in a skip out the back of the building, towards the book that she was reading. But it wasn't on. She turned round, wondering where the extra light was coming from, and there, hanging in mid-air and suffused by a bright glow with a slight pearlescent tinge to it, was a magical-looking woman of late middle age. In her hand she held a wand. She smiled kindly. Cinder stood up and walked over towards her. "Who the hell are you?" asked Cinderella. "My dear," said the apparition, "I am your fairy godmother." "Thank balls for that," said Cinderella. "I thought I was getting a brain tumour." Or religion. "Darling girl," admonished the other, "such language is not ladylike." "Quite right," said Cinderella, "'cause I ain't no lady." Now this shocked Fairy Godmother so much her light went out and she fell on her ass with a scream. "How can you say such a thing?" she said, getting up and rubbing her behind. "Easily," said Cinderella. "What business is it of yours?" "I'm your godmother." "Oh, so God exists then, does he? I don't remember there being fairies in the Bible. Isn't it all a little culturally muddled?" "Now let's not get bogged down in that right now," said the FG. "I want you to be happy. It's my job to make that happen. God, my bum hurts." "Here, sit," said Cinders, pulling over an office chair and brushing off the dust. "You look knackered." "It does take it out of you," the FG admitted. "All that hovering in the air and sparkling consistently really does play havoc on the neck, you know. And of course, all that swaying around with the little sparkly wand and everything, it does not really hurt the tennis elbow. Oh my goodness gracious. But I've got to say, the kiddies do like it. And it's nice to meet someone normal for a change." "Oh, thank you." "Oh," she squeaked as Cinders poured her a brandy. "I really shouldn't. I'm flying home after all, but medicinally." The brandy was down the hatch and the glass back in Cinderella's hand in a trice. "So, let me get this straight," said Cinders, filling the glass a little deeper this time. "What do I actually need a fairy godmother for? This is just cheap corner shop stuff. BT dubs. Tastes like factory runoff." "Does the trick, though, doesn't it?" said the FG, tossing back the second measure and handing it to Cinders with a burpo profundo and a giggle. Oh, I like that. Burpo profundo. Anyway, if you want to know my opinion, I agree. Godparents are for the little ones, but it's not down to me. All I know is I have to get all the addresses done on the docket before I can clock off. "But I'm a princess," Cinderella persisted. "I've got crazy privilege. It's coming off me like sweat. And yet here you are, covered in grime, working every hour there is," said the fairy godmother. "That's because I like it that way," said Cinderella, getting angry. "Don't you understand? I could stop this tomorrow if I wanted to, but it's important to me to understand the meaning of hard work and experience the value of something earned. I'm trying to escape the unfair privilege that has been landed upon me and work for a better world. You should go and help some poor girl in a sweatshop with no prospects. Help a bunch of them, a generation of them, preferably." "People look up to you," said FG. "I don't want them to. I want them to enjoy their own lives." "Well, maybe that's why they look up to you in particular." Seeing the disgust on Cinderella's face, she abandoned that line of argument. "Listen," FG said. "From what I can make out, the forces upstairs are as conservative as those down here. But maybe you can use that to make a difference, because tonight there's a ball. Prince Charming." "NFI," said Cinderella. The fairy godmother flourished her hand. There was a distant sound as of icicles jangling together, tinkle, 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 and she was holding an invitation. "Dessert." "I'm not going," said Cinders. "Some inbred halfwit wandering around his own personal sex buffet while his pimp master general notes down the women he deems it profitable to impregnate. Not a fun Saturday night in my book. Presumably there's a swimsuit round." "Suit yourself, dearie," said the FG, getting up and filling her glass from the water cooler. She looked around the lording bay. "But I'll leave you the fancy get-up required, just in case you have a change of heart." She waved her wand in the air while she drank, and a gown appeared draped over the teens of a nearby forklift truck. Matching shoes sparkled into existence on the ground alongside. "The ball has already started, so I've ordered a special carriage to take you there. It's outside now." She took the bottle from under Cinderella's arm and held it at arm's length. "One for the road? Perhaps not," she said. "Goes straight to your head after a long day, doesn't it? Hope there's not too much traffic up there, or I might be in trouble." She pulled a yellow form from deep within the mystery of her blouse and squinted at it. "Oh, God," she muttered. "That's a bit of a journey." "Help poor people, you idiot," said Cinderella. The FG swirled her wand and floated up into the air. "I'll suggest it to my line manager," she said. And she buggered off. Cinderella sighed wearily and turned back to her studies. People like me, she thought, being allotted fairy godmothers. Such total bullshit. Just made her want to work harder and help the people living in I forgot to mention. Cinders jumped. The FG was fluttering above her once more. If you go to the ball, it's under one condition. You must leave by midnight or everything will go really wrong. And it's gone 7 now. Shit. Princess Veronica will be in bed. With a look of deep concentration and a loud popping noise, the FG vanished once more. Now, unsure whether the popping noise was a function of magic or the result of a biological process, Cinders retreated to the nearby bathroom to escape any potential stench. She swept up the gown and shoes as she passed. In the bathroom, she held up the dress in the mirror and the shoes in front of the dress. She washed her hands and her face, dried them, held up the dress again. It didn't entirely not suit her. She looked in the mirror a while more at the shoes. She hadn't been to a ball since her father was alive. It could be fun, she admitted to her reflection. When Cinder stepped out of the delivery bay onto the street in order to order an ogre instead of an Uber, she remembered the smelly old fairy mentioning something about sending a cab. Annoyingly, it was impossible to see if it had turned up because some antisocial douche had dumped what looked like a 3-ton avocado in the middle of the street. "Milady," said a voice. Cinderella jumped. Then she looked up to see an elderly chauffeur sitting on top of the avocado with reins in his hands. Following the reins, she saw 4 horses that she also somehow failed to notice. The door in the side of the avocado swung open, and Cinderella climbed up into it in a daze. It seemed a bit improper not to. Then, with a whip of the whip, the avocado carriage took off along the street, pushing Cinderella back into the upholstery. To one side of her seat was a fabulous array of makeup. Lipstick, mascara, eyeshadow, blusher, as well as a mirror and a separate chair. The entire arrangement was fixed together on a gimbal to render it immune to the movement of the carriage. Such sublime thoughtfulness. Cinderella didn't normally bother with makeup. One more thing women had to worry about that men didn't. After all, Prince Charming probably thought he'd made an effort if someone had combed most of the previous meal's caviar from his twirly moustache. But, looking at her spectacular gown and shoes, she felt that they deserved a bit of a compliment. So she got to work. Just as she thought it was all starting to come together, although in a perfect world she'd have had a proper shower rather than the swift, empathetic armpit scrub with the face cloth, the carriage pulled up. Cinderella donned the mask that the chauffeur had held out to her as he helped her down from the carriage. Never had a tip been so obviously earned, but she didn't have a shilling on her and begged apology. "Buy you a Guinness sometime?" she said, giving him a slap on the shoulder. He tilted his head minutely towards her and then melted into the background. She looked up at the palatial venue, its facade emblazoned and the air scented by 1,000 multicoloured artisanal candles. She took a deep breath, then started up the wide staircase, suppressing the tremor in her legs with determination. Past the burly yet polite guards, and in the interior it was no less of an intimidatingly swanky affair. Gigantic ballroom, glorious music, incredible little canopies that Cinderella couldn't help cramming down her neck in case they never came round again, and a glass of fizzy plonk on a silver platter perpetually within reach. "Look at all the money spoffed on Gladrax in this place, lol," she yelled over the music to the first guest who came to talk to her. The woman froze, backed away slowly. "Your lost love," thought Cinders. Clearly, despite wanting desperately to avoid it, Cinders had made a bit of an impression. Everywhere she turned, groups curled in on themselves and talked, then looked at her. Not in that bitchy, gloating way she knew from the office. This was something else. Really, Cinderella had only accepted the invitation to have a final glimpse into the world she was fighting against, and also possibly to see how badly her sisters fared, because they really had zero sense of style. Although, noticing this thought, she admonished herself for it. But wait, there they were. Wait, no, not so awful. And best to steer clear of them in case they recognised her. Well, I've seen them now, Cinderella thought. My fun. Maybe just one more canapé, nommy nom noms, and just one more glass, then out. Happening to glance over at her stepsisters again, she noticed something odd. Both of them were staring wide-eyed, their looks travelling across the dance floor with a steady, unwavering movement right towards her. Do you mind if I ask you to dance? Oh! Cinders coughed some champagne through her nose. Her eyes watered as she tried to swallow both the champagne and the mouthful of canapé at once. She was not usually so discomfited by the attentions of a man, but her mind had been elsewhere. Sure, whatever, she said, but be warned, I stink. He did not acknowledge this as an obstacle. Taking her hands, he instantly swept her away with the music in a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That was, she admitted, rather splendid. You don't like to dance? There was a pleasing bass vibration to his voice. Never tried, he said. Always thought it was a waste of time. What do you do instead? Eat babies, she said. Rob old people, just the really weak ones. Is it fun? It passes the time. Watch your feet, God damn it. Actually, my feet were supposed to be there. What do you think of dancing now? He was, to be fair, an exquisite dancer, and after the first introductory stumble, he had succeeded in making Cinders feel as though she were too. He guided her with a delicate assurance that made her feel as though she were doing it herself. The lights spun somewhat, the champagne softened everything, or sharpened it. Jury's out, she said, realizing that her mouth was somehow next to his ear. From his skin she got the trace of cologne. It was entirely exotic to her, while it would have to be in comparison with eau de photocopy toner. It's fun, I suppose, she said, but also very pointless. I don't see how spending time with you could ever be pointless. In the rhythmic swirl of music and dance, Cinders found it irritatingly hard to keep hold of her next rebuke, so she remained silent for a few moments, during which their movements and the music made it hard to think of anything at all. You have no idea who I am, she said at last. I could actually eat babies, you know. Dancing together for 5 minutes is not a sensible basis on which to build a relationship. We've been dancing for half an hour, he said. At this moment in the dance, it was necessary for him to throw her back and lean over her. The posture had certain connotations, and at that moment she happened to lose her breath a bit. When he filled her view like this, the lights in the room failed to reveal him as a fawny or a grotesque. In fact, the features she thought handsome from afar were even better in close up. The prince leaned closer. The room was suddenly deathly quiet. Now, she could have kicked him in the knackers, but as a royal doing so might start a war between their respective countries, the War of the Prince's bollocks did have a certain ring to it, but she decided against it on this occasion. Her second option was to kiss him and enjoy it for what it was, seeing as he was a bit of a knockout, you know, bit of a unit. But he'd practically take that as an engagement, and in front of all these posh freaks, Her third option was this: say, hey, just because I swish into the room and happen to have scrubbed up nice, don't take that as part of your narrative. I might well be the perfect woman. I do my best, but I'm not the perfect woman for you. Even if I was interested, amazing that this must be to you, I've got my own life going on. I'm not even mildly tempted to throw it all away to be your favourite toy for a couple of weeks or months. Folks like you don't see women as complex beings, just apparitions who complete or fix you. So, laters. But this was not the time or the place for this big speech. Besides, he'd probably take it as her just wanting him to try harder. No, there was a much simpler and more eloquent way of saying the same thing. Prince Charming, for of course that is who he was, a fact confirmed by the way the congregation had retreated to the edges of the room to watch the two of them dance, rose as Cinderella deftly wriggled out of his grip and walked away from him across the ballroom. Oh, ball bags, Cinders thought. I've done it now. Attempting to appear casual as she weaved through the crowd towards the door, she glanced at the clock and saw it was 1 minute before midnight. "Out of my way, you posh dickheads!" she called. "Coming through!" Once out of the door, she took her high heels off and sprinted in bare feet. However, as she came out at the top of the outside staircase, she skidded gracelessly on the carpet and toppled over. As she clattered to the ground, she thought she caught a glimpse of the prince between people's legs, staring woefully and sadly in her direction. But there was no time. She leapt back onto her pins, careened down to the street, and hurtled through the proffered door of the magic avocado. There's a sentence you don't write every day. She lay on the floor, panting until she was convinced they were out of sight. She noticed she seemed to have dropped one shoe, but that was her smallest concern right now. She clambered up, still out of breath, and plumped herself among the cushions, grateful to have escaped. She was just starting to take an interest in the contents of the onboard minibar when, whoomph, the carriage exploded. Only joking. It turned back into an avocado, and Cinderella's clothes turned into rags, or at least very dirty jeans, and the makeup she'd been wearing vanished along with the horses and the driver. She found herself sitting on the road next to a ripe avocado. A walk and some fresh air would do her good, plus an avocado for sustenance. Booyah! She said, and then wondered if people still actually said that. The following Monday, the office was alive with gossip about Prince Charming, who was certainly among the most exciting princes in all the realms. There were a few more handsome ones, it's true, but they tended to be very interested in murder or the appendages of other princes and the uses thereof. It seemed that the prince was obsessed with someone he had met at his birthday ball the previous Saturday. It was such a talking point that some people in the office even mentioned it to Cinderella, someone they never usually spoke to at all. "Crazy," she said. "I wonder who it was." Apparently, she just vanished, and no one knows who she was. "Well, that's wild. Well, she's certainly not me, that's for sure," said Cinderella. She cursed herself for being such a terrible improviser when nervous. But it turned out okay because nobody noticed or listened to her. Even if she had shouted it from the rooftops, or even worse, at an all staff company email admitting that she was indeed the mystery girl, no one would have believed her. In fact, that would probably have convinced people she was definitely not telling the truth. And so Cinderella returned peacefully to her work. The latest round of layoffs meant her job now included delivering the post, and she had much delightful badinage as she pushed her mail trolley through the offices. Discussions of the latest hangings, sports results, invasions, and so forth. She went on with her life and focused on revising her law books whenever she could. Then one day, Cinderella saw some colleagues laughing over a newspaper, and as she went past, she leaned in for a look. It was the brief encounters columns. "We met at the ball," it said. "We danced. You fled. Marriage?" She fled. Then, one weekend a few months later, when Cinderella was becoming dull-witted with the routine of office life and had several loads of dirty washing to do, she returned to the palace. Usually, Cinder stayed below the stairs, where the conversation was lively, people were friendly, and you didn't have to spend meals with a stepmother who wanted to kill you. Slipping up the back stairs just to have a look at her old bedroom, she heard a familiar voice. That satisfying bass, that confident tone. At the sound, she got a sense memory of a certain cologne. Retreating down the stairs and along the corridor, Ella moved close to the entrance of the morning room and peered around the door. Inside, she saw her ghastly stepsisters smiling and mincing about in the most pretentious way. Kneeling before them was Prince Charming. Each princess stepped forward in turn and tried to shove, squeeze, and finally ram her foot into the shoe he was holding. The prince was, in fact, being quite charming by pretending that he thought either stepsister might have been the woman he had danced with. When their exertions proved fruitless and a certain amount of blood was seeping from each misapplied ankle, the prince said, "It's extraordinary. A soothsayer told me that the girl who matched this shoe grew up in this house. Your Highnesses, I earnestly entreat your pardon for intruding upon your day. My search must now move elsewhere." Cinder stole silently back to the safety of the servants' quarters, leaving the prince discreetly dabbing the sister's gore from the shoe with his handkerchief before placing it in his pocket. his rather voluminous pocket. The next thing that people were talking about in the office was the online campaign to find Prince Charming's mysterious girl. What's an online campaign? Asked Cinderella when she heard. But everyone knew that, so no one told her. She soon worked it out, though. Apparently, posters showing the specific footprint of the shoe worn by the mystery girl had been left on washing lines all over the kingdom, boasting a handsome reward. Handsomeness in everything being very on brand for Prince C, in case anyone could find a footprint that matched it. Maybe she doesn't want to be found, she said. Cinders felt she'd made a few decent quips in the office over the years, not that anyone had ever noticed. This remark, however, intended in perfect seriousness, caused general hilarity. It was unthinkable that anyone would not want to marry into royalty and enormous wealth. Everybody fell about. Someone even high-fived her. She pushed her trolley dejectedly away. For the thousandth time, Cinderella battled to get the trolley's wonky front wheel over the lip of the service elevator. When the lift opened on the bottom floor, she yanked the recalcitrant vehicle out after her and angled it in the right direction with a great deal of sweaty effort and furious swearing. Finally, she got it back in its place and turned around, exhausted. Oh, shit, she said. Yes, said Prince Charming. You shouldn't be here, she said. It's employees only. More importantly, it's stalking. What can I say? He replied. I don't know how to give up. It's probably a brain defect, she said, caused by your inbreeding. And then she reminded herself, don't try to run him down. It won't work. He's literally Prince Charming. He smiled at her. How did you find me? She asked. It turns out you are so ridiculously assiduous that you dust the cobwebs from the office ceiling, princess. Don't call me that, she said. I really don't like it. So what? You were standing on the photocopier dusting, and when you leaned over, you must have pressed the button with a toe and left a photocopy of your foot. So someone found it and matched it to the picture and told you. He smiled. What was the reward for dobbing me in? She asked. I bet it was thousands. I could have claimed it myself and given it to charity. Does this shoe fit you? He asked, getting down on one knee and holding it out. Of course it does. It's my shoe. Won't you try it on? No. He smiled again. Would you mind going now? She asked. He raised an eyebrow. Won't you come with me? No. I've got work to do. Thanks. If you come with me, he said, you'll never have to work again. I never had to work in the first place, she said, looking at her dusty hands and wiping them on her backside. If I didn't want to, you know that, so throw out the damsel rescuing routine, okay? It's out of date and it stinks. He was crestfallen. More than that, he looked genuinely stung. Even though she knew this was because he was spoiled, it made her feel a little bit guilty. Look, she said, getting sent here was an incredible opportunity. I've always hated being royalty, not allowed to help the poor and starving or even talk to them because it wasn't the done thing. Then my stepmother put me in this job. I saw it as a lifeline, an extremely useful life experience that a normal princess never normally gets. I welcomed it. Great, said Prince Charming, rallying. But I'd say after all this time, you've got that experience, right? You can take your rightful place as a princess and a future queen, better prepared to rule than any of her predecessors. Hey, I'm sorry, said Cinderella. She even patted him on the knee. I know no one has ever said this to you before. I am not interested. I know you found it exciting to chase your magical pretend woman through a long campaign. It made you feel like the hero in the story, and everyone you know is invested in it too, because everything always works out for you, and therefore you think it will end in marriage and children, but it will not. The prince had now adopted a patient, thoughtful, in inverted commas, nice guy, close inverted commas, expression, and still affected a slightly humorous air. He put up his hands. I'm sorry that I came on a bit strong. The national campaign thing is a bit on the strong side. That is true, Cinderella said. But really, the thing is, I'm just not interested, whichever way you ask me. This time she watched it sink in with a little guilty satisfaction. I'm only 18, she said. Who gets married at 18? I'm studying towards a law degree so I can help people in the slums who've got no rights. After studying, I'm going to go travelling to take a year out and go to Goa to have some real experiences and fend for myself like real people do. It had obviously never occurred to Prince Charming that a person, still less beautiful and a privileged woman, would want these things when there was an easy alternative. After travelling, I'm going to have a career, find a place in my chosen industry, and let's face it, probably shag around a bit. Then maybe settle into a solid relationship if I meet someone. Prince Charming appeared to be making some rapid calculations. If I wait all that time, he said with strangulated seriousness. Do not be stupid, Prince, she said. Hey, what is your name anyway? I can't call you Prince all the time. Hector Bartolomeo Randolph Schaman Schleswig Brandon Fortenschweiß von Engelschap. Right. Well, Prince it is then. I wasn't finished. Let's do the rest of it some other time, she snapped. Who wants to be in a royal family anyway? The scrutiny, the psychological problems, the isolation, the responsibility, the pressure. The prince started to look like he was waking up from an alarming dream. He glanced at his brocaded sleeves and at the inherited medals on his breast. What am I wearing? He said. This should be worn by a retired soldier. Cinderella was pleased to witness this awakening, but she really did have some invoices to go through, so she popped a pencil in her mouth and flicked over some pages on her clipboard. I should be wearing ripped working men's trousers, the prince exclaimed. They're called jeans. And going to music festivals. And smoking jazz cigarillos. God, I can't believe I have lived like this for so long. It's so false. See it, bro, murmured Cinderella, adding up some figures in her head. From now on, I want to live a real life, giving back to people instead of leeching off them. I'll revoke my royal status and become a doctor. I will work in the world's most dangerous war zones, bringing relief to the oppressed. That's the stuff. She flicked over a page and popped the pencil back behind her ear. I want to begin right now, he yelled with joy. Well, if you want to start understanding the working man right away, there's some boxes over here that need to be taken up to the 5th floor, Cinderella said. And so, Prince Charming gave up his titles and his lands and devoted his life to good causes. Cinders and he became friends and colleagues, and soon afterwards fellow students. On a couple of occasions they got drunk and a little bit emotional and lay fully clothed next to each other, pretending to be asleep. Then, gradually as time passed and their lives became busier, they lost touch and forgot about each other. Then they died. It's life, innit? Rawr! Oh! All right, my lovelies, I hope you enjoyed that. That was so much fun, and I need to catch up with all of these comments. My goodness gracious, let's have a little look-see. Goodness me. I enjoyed that one. I think they're really, really good. Okay. Du-du-du. Good. Oh my goodness, no. Mods are cool, that's why I'm not. Hey, gee, you should be though. And Rose should be and everybody should be well though. But yes, we do need more royals to Geordie show that. If any man tried to bend me over on a dance floor, he will find himself flipped over onto his back and then I walk away. I can imagine if any man tried to bend me over on the dance floor, my back would go snap, my knee would come up inadvertently, and it would like, well, he would be squeaking for a while. Oh my goodness gracious. Well, my lovely beans. That was great fun, but it's absolutely burned me out. But I think this is definitely a book we shall be seeing more of. It's absolutely brilliant. I was chuckling away a lot of the time there. By Bruno Vincent. He's absolutely legendary. And it's called Fairy Tales for Millennials. And it's hilarious. I absolutely loved it. So lovely, Beans. I really do appreciate you being here. And it was funny at the beginning. And the fact that you all came back, I really do appreciate it. So Take it easy, my lovely beans. Keep yourselves warm if you're cold. Get hydrated if you're too hot. And most of all, take care and look after yourselves, Petal. I'll see you soon.